And welcome on in, everybody, to another edition of the Auburn Undercover podcast on the 24/7 Sports Network and on the Auburn Undercover YouTube channel. A little bit of a different setting here.
Yeah.
Figured we'd do it after Hugh Freeze's press conference on Monday because there's not a whole lot of recruiting to talk about because, I asked Hugh Freeze about it today. The 25 class is in pretty good shape. The latest news is that you get Sam Turner to flip from Georgia Tech on Thursday night, I believe it was.
Mm-hmm.
Something that we've been waiting on really since Big Cat Weekend.
Yeah.
Took a little bit longer than expected, but we'll start with that, Jason. Sam Turner, a guy who not necessarily ranked the highest, but this is a guy that the staff believes in. Someone said recently that they thought he had the best hands in the class. Guy that can play inside and out a little bit. A solid addition to that room when you're talking about Derek Smith, Sam Turner, and trying to get guys that can come in and at least help contribute behind these freshmen as they will be, sophomores next year.
Yeah, you look at Sam Turner. Now, the thing I think is playability when you look at him and a guy early playing time. When you watch him, you see a guy that's a good route runner. You see good hands. You see a guy that can move around, do some different things, and a physical body. I mean, he's not a guy that's 220, but he's not small, and so he has a frame that you feel like he can come in and play right away. And so I think that's a big deal when you start talking about what you need on the next level. And I do think a guy that can play in the middle of the field, when you watch him, he can go over the middle, catch ball, do those things. And so I think it's a really good addition. You're right, to the entire group that you have, the guys you expect to be back next year. You start talking about Sam Turner as a guy that can come in and help you.
Yeah, and the other thing is Hugh Freeze has been so big on culture guys and guys that he likes and that fits the system. On the field, off the field, Sam Turner is one of those guys. He's one of my favorite guys in the class just to talk with, even just over text. Great kid, so solid pickup there. And then, asked Hugh Freeze about it today, and he said that feels really good about the class. They're number 3 in the country right now, trailing just Alabama and Ohio State. And you go down the position boards, I'm doing my big boards, there's not a whole lot left. You've got your quarterback, running back, you'd like to get a second guy, but if you can't flip Usman Kroma or Shakai Mills-Knight, you're probably done there. Receiver, you're still big game hunting a little bit there. Try for a Caleb Cunningham, maybe a CJ Wiley. Done at tight end. O-line, you're still going after Babalola. You're still flirting with Malachi Goodman, the Penn State commit a little bit. You're going after those guys, but you're in a good enough spot where you've got 6 guys after Cale Ellis reclassified to the point of offensive side of the ball is pretty well close to wrapped up, and same could be said for defense. I mean, the biggest thing left might be defensive line, and you've got 4 really good ones committed, so it's not like you're in a dire situation. I think that's probably what we should talk about next. Darion Smith, the Tennessee defensive line commit, Joe Mbachu, the Florida defensive line commit. Those are your top 2 targets remaining at that position. Interesting players, Mbachu especially.
Correct.
Literally just put on pads for the first time this spring. Actually found out that he visited last Wednesday for practice, was already here for the Cal game, going to officially visit in November. Same with Darion Smith, who's up there at St. Francis with those 3 commitments. So you've got a couple intriguing guys there. People will ask, would Auburn take both? Would they take 6 defensive linemen? Yes.
Yeah, I think so. You start talking about numbers, and what we don't know right now is what the roster numbers are going to look like in terms of scholarships. That could impact everything, because if you go to 105 and it's 105 scholarships, then all of a sudden you're going to take a few more guys to be a little bit deeper. And so you start talking about numbers, you want to do that on the line of scrimmage. I think that's where you want to see these things. And here's the other part of this too, is there's going to be a few select transfer guys to add to this class. So you start talking about running back. I think this is a situation where you could see a transfer running back to come in and go, hey, let's go find a guy for a year, maybe a bigger physical guy that gives us kind of a sledgehammer that's a 1-year guy. Obviously, quarterback is a situation, but I think line of scrimmage, a couple of select guys. I think it'll be continuing to narrow down what we've seen, which is a lot in year 1, still a few in year 2, lesser in year 3. But you're right, big game hunting, I think, is the key for this recruiting class, is that go after a few top guys and see what you can get, because you're looking at adding maybe a few transfers.
Yeah, and the biggest name that's still out there on the board and will be until signing day is Neem Offord.
Yeah.
And you want to talk about big game hunting. Number 1 guy in the state for 2025, top 10 player in the country. I think he's the number 2 cornerback, committed to Ohio State, been committed since February. When he committed and all throughout the spring, he didn't visit in the spring. It was like, don't feel great about the way things are going there. He ends up taking an official visit that kind of pops up out of nowhere, keeps coming back on campus, keeps coming back more and more. Oregon is still in it. Ohio State is obviously still fighting. but Auburn is making a huge push, and Hugh Freeze has done such a good job of in-state recruiting, and I do think proximity to home plays a factor here with Neem. I think that's something that intrigues him and would be interesting to him, especially you talk about all these guys that are committed. They're all friends.
Yes,
they're all friends. They've all known each other for a long time, and so I think that is very interesting as well. Already been here for 2 games, been here for a Friday practice as well. Probably back for at least one more game there in November. And the other advantage you have, clearly, is he's 2 hours down the road. You could get him down for another practice or something like that as well.
I think the key is something you talked about. I think it's familiarity with the other guys in this class. When you start talking about Malik Davis down the road, Eric Winters, Anquan Fagans, Jordan Crawford, his teammate.
Yep.
There are a lot of guys in this class that have built a strong bond over the last 12 to 24 months, and I think that plays a factor. The other part of it that Hugh Freeze talked about is, look, these are guys, you're recruiting guys now that, and it's the kind of guys you have to recruit that feel like I'm the missing piece. That's the guys you want to go, hey man, they're close. I'm the guy that can put them over the top. Neem Offord is the guy that has that confidence to go, I'm going to come in and play along with these young guys Auburn's playing in the secondary and push it over the top. And so you start adding guys like that, all of a sudden people go, man, they're close. I'm going to get them even closer when I get on campus. I think that's what Neem Offord's thinking now. Is it enough to get him over the top? We'll see. But there's no question that this is one that feels completely different than it did 6 months ago.
Yeah, exactly. And I put up a post on the board actually after Sam Turner flipped, and I said, what are your biggest want and what's your biggest need in this class moving forward with only a couple guys still left? A lot of it was people flip-flopping between Andrew Babalola and Neem Offord. I honestly think Neem Offord is a bigger need than Andrew Babalola. You've got 6 guys on the offensive line. You've got a Brody Shull. You've got a Tavares Dice. You could probably go out and get a left tackle out of the transfer portal. You could get a guy there, I think, that would be serviceable, along with the young guys that you have there as well. I just think the need at cornerback is so big, and that's evidence this year where you're so thin. And you have written about it, Nathan has as well, some tough luck with guys like Colton Hood and Tyler Scott leaving.
And
JD
Champ
Anthony, everything. Even going back to last year's recruiting class, I was thinking about it. You didn't recruit it as heavily because you felt like you were okay. Jalewis Solomon ended up flipping to South Carolina, and you kind of let it ride. You didn't recruit some of these other guys. It's been unfortunate luck, but Neem Offord is a guy that's so elite that he could easily be in your 2-deep next year at cornerback and pushing for playing time. And it's a kind of a funny storyline where you flip Kayan Lee from Ohio State late, and he was instantly an impact guy in year 1. You think Neem Offord could be the same, maybe even at a higher level, at least rankings-wise.
Yeah, and then it's in-state guy. I mean, you put so much focus on recruiting the state of Alabama. To grab a Neem Offord along with the guys in this class would absolutely show people like, look, they're not playing around. Auburn has made the state of Alabama the major emphasis in recruiting. There's enough guys in this state now that you can go out and win with the state of Alabama. I think that would be as big a deal as anything, going, look, I told you, we told you, we're coming for guys in the state. And I think that's big because you think about 26 and 27, there's a lot more good players coming down the road in the state of Alabama for sure.
Yeah, and I think to wrap things up, sticking in the state of Alabama, we'll talk about Friday night. We went to Opelika Enterprise, so Malik Davis going up against Eric Winters. Obviously, Enterprise also has Zion Grady and Andrew Purcell, the Ohio State and Kentucky commit. Opelika has some other guys as well. A guy like Amari Smiley is committed to South Alabama. Really good, really fun high school player who will probably continue to develop and get good as well. But the guys that we were mainly watching, the 2 Auburn commits, obviously, we've seen Eric Winters several times. We think that he's extremely versatile, extremely talented, can do a lot at a lot of different levels on the defense. That might have been one of the best performances we've seen Malik Davis put together.
Absolutely.
We saw him in week 1. Didn't have a huge impact on the game against Benjamin Russell. Had a couple tackles, I think a tackle for loss, but he was a little bit more of a game breaker against Enterprise than he was against Benjamin Russell, which is a good sign of.
Absolutely. I thought Malik was really good. I thought he showed the ability to get up the field, make plays, create havoc. I mean, he did everything you're looking for out of a true interior guy. And here's the thing about him. They'll slide him outside the defensive end some in pass rush situations, and he's not bad doing that. But he's also a guy that probably 15 to 20 pounds less when he gets to Auburn and gets in the strength and conditioning program. He's going to add more explosiveness. I thought he played from beginning to end against Enterprise as good as we've seen him play. We've watched him for the last couple of years. Thought he was really good. Eric Winters, they're just not as good up front, and that's a problem. You know, Opelika was able to run the football and get it downhill some. Calvin Hughley is a sleeper name running back at Opelika, a guy that I think wind up in a group of 5, but a guy that maybe down the road winds up back in the Power 5 before he's done. But Eric was really good. Obviously, Enterprise right now, when they do anything on offense, it's either him or Andrew Purcell really that has to touch it. They gave him some touches in the running game, and he did a pretty good job. Just a great athlete, a guy that understands how to play safety. I think that combination of Anquan Fagans and Eric Winters for Auburn is an elite group of safeties.
Adding that to Caleb Harris, Sylvester Smith.
I know.
You've got such a fun young secondary for the coming years, even the defensive front. I mean, we've talked about it. The guys that you have now, getting off topic, but adding Malik, adding Jordan Crawford, adding Antonio Coleman, adding Nate Marshall to the outside with guys like Keldrick Falk and Amaris Williams, Jamonte Waller, all that stuff.
DeMarcus Riddick now playing some pass rush stuff. I mean, you're right. You think about the defense. Well, we've seen a little bit. You add in some guys and potentially Aneem Offord, and Auburn has as much talent. Now, it'll still be freshmen, sophomores, but you'll have Keldrick Falk as an older guy. This will be as talented a group as maybe there is in the Southeastern Conference just that quickly.
It'll be a ton of fun to watch. Asked Hugh Freeze, he said he felt pretty good about the way things are going with the class and with guys sticking. And even Malik said he thought that everyone kind of stick as well, even though the season isn't going as planned. So, Jason, I think with that, we'll probably wrap things up. This Friday, you'll be on the road to Missouri. I'll be on the road to Mississippi to go see Deuce Knight play. So look forward to that. Might try and get Deuce on the podcast as well, depending on his schedule. So stay tuned for that. Appreciate everyone tuning in, and we will catch